All right. Here we go, guys and gals. And boogity, boogity, boogity. Let's go racing, drivers.
And we're back for the Loose Wheel Podcast, Season 2, Episode number 8. I'm Andrew, as always. Ethan, alongside me. And we have a guest. This guy is a wheel knower. He likes F1, he likes IndyCar, San Jose Sharks legend.
Fellow San Jose boy on the podcast, let's go.
Royce Dixon Child. Great to have you on, man.
Hey, I'm glad to be here.
Yeah, glad to have you. But we're going to get into the reviews.
And now for last week's race reviews.
Only one race to review. It was the Atlanta Motor Speedway, Hotlanta. Another super speedway track. You had the wrecks early.
Was it hot?
It was, I don't know. They call it
Would you say it was scorching?
The race itself was a scorching race. A lot of wrecks. A lot of just stuff that happened. Denny Hamlin wrecked 3 times. That was fun for me.
Wait, 3 times?
Yes, 3 times.
Did he retire after the last one, or was he just still going strong?
I don't know if he retired or not, but...
Obviously, I did not watch the race. I was... Yeah. Where was I?
He finished running 23rd.
I was covering softball.
Yeah. Noted softball cover, Ethan here. Thank Royce coming in, finishing 23rd. I don't know if you all heard that, but yeah, the week started with Stewart Haas Racing getting their stuff confiscated. It was roof air deflectors, and they got a nice solid L1 penalty, which is the lowest penalty. Goes L1, L2, L3. And a loss of a solid 35 points.
Can you walk me through what the thought process was there for the team?
I have no clue. This is not my area of expertise on trying to bend the rules. But now we as a group have the same amount of points this year as Ryan Preece. And more points than Noah Gragson, who are at 0 and -6 apiece.
So I can put on my resume that I've scored more points in NASCAR this season than Noah Gragson.
Yes, you can.
Probably shouldn't do that, though.
Yeah. And then in qualifying, Joey Logano used a glove that had webbing to better deflect air so his car could go faster.
Can you walk me through that one?
That one, actually, I can walk through. So with a web gloving, it deflects the air better, makes the car go faster. I'm not sure how. So that's why.
So is he gonna hold his hand up to the?
So the drivers hold their hand out the window
on the straights.
On the straights. And I think the corners too.
Damn.
Just to better deflect air off of the spoiler to make the car go faster.
Okay.
I don't know exactly how that works, but it's in aerodynamics.
Sure. Yeah.
And he only did that for qualifying, and a lot of people are saying he might have did it for the 500. Their 500 because qualifying was at night, so it's harder to see. But who knows? But that's an illegal modified glove. And
because it didn't fit the fire retardant specifications, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
It is. It's basically. So he had a nice $10,000 fine. That'll go to the NASCAR charities. But yeah, and then 2 penalties to start the weekend. Trucks happened. Bailey Curie's roof fell off. That was interesting. Nothing came from that in terms of penalties, but yeah, that was a situation. Kyle Busch won, as one of the guests did indeed predict. Our boy Evan, good job. And in the Xfinity race, crew chief for J.J. Yaley, Jason Miller, just decided to absolutely just try to get his hands on Kyle Weatherman and failed miserably in the process. He tried to get a punch. I don't think he landed anything. Kyle was like chill all about it. And Mr. Miller got himself a 2-week vacation with a suspension time there. So he'll enjoy the next 2 weekends off for SS Greenlight Racing backmarker team. I don't think it makes a difference that much between him and the next guy, respectfully. And then the big race happened. Rex early, lap 2, that took out a lot of the field. It was like in that, and then throughout the race, as I said earlier, solid. I think 7 cars were not involved in a wreck. But the finish, 3 wide, coming to the line, one of them classic Atlanta finishes. Daniel Suarez beats Ryan Blaney by 3 thousandths of a second and Kyle Busch by 7 thousandths of a second.
That's
just
crazy.
like in cars. I thought it was Blaney that got it at first. Yeah, it was a very great finish.
Yeah.
This is why you come and watch NASCAR. Just anything can happen. All-time classic race.
Yeah.
I think.
The finish was wild. I mean, like you said, it was reminiscent of the opening scene of Cars. Me and Royce were talking on the way over here about how in the next rules and regulations,
the next generation of cars.
The next generation of cars, NASCAR should allow for there to be a button where you can eject a ton out of the grill of the car. You can only use it twice per season, and you can just get that little advantage. Because as Royce said on the walk over here, sprinters at the end of the race, they'll kind of lunge forward. It's basically the same thing if you think about it.
Yeah, and you could see it could be versatile. You could see it in qualifying. You could see it out in a race. You never know. Maybe for a couple extra stage points, or maybe late in a race in the playoffs to get you through to the next round. That ton could come in big.
That is some intuitive thinking, innovative thinking.
Innovation, baby.
Yeah, innovation. We like innovation here at the Loose Wheel Podcast. But yeah, I as soon as they were in turn 3, I'm like, this is going to be a photo finish, and I think they're going to be 3 wide. I said that to my dad, and that's what happened, because just that's how the run works. That's how the arrow works. Pretty neat. This is why I like NASCAR. Yeah.
Well said.
Moving on to the news.
And now for the news.
We have a bit of news. We're going to go for a 2-for-1 at the start. You have Ferrari and BMW lose GT manufacturer points from Daytona. And BMW is furious about the Rolex 24 penalty. So basically, IMSA said earlier in the offseason, okay, we want y'all to come with a car and just run laps so we can get a good BOP to make the cars all the same level. And some teams sandbag, and before that test they said, if you sandbag, we will do anything, which will include mid-race parking your cars because you sandbag too much, you're going too fast, you get timeout.
That's actually hilarious. They are going to put them in timeout.
Well, that's me just saying that, but basically that's the thing. Get parked during the race, and that would...
I mean, yeah, that does sound like timeout.
That's basically timeout. But
so how do they get them parked? Is it just a command, or
it would be a command, but we didn't reach that level of speed, fortunately, depending on how you look at it. It was just they took only the manufacturer points away. They did not take driver points or team points, because this was ordered by the manufacturers as a thing for the manufacturers work together to say, or BMW said to all their teams, okay, do this, or basically do this, or face consequences of being slow. And the same teams, okay, do this or face the consequences of being fired, possibly. I don't know what goes in those situations behind the scenes, but I think
Right.
that's how it works. So that's why teams and drivers, even though they're in control, they don't have control. And BMW is furious about it because their car is relatively old. It's only 3 years old, but it is relatively old. So they're like, oh, our car is old. You guys should know our BOP because we've been running for 2 years. So they were upset about that. And of the manufacturers, BMW, their car is they have the, I believe, the fourth oldest car in the field. So they're kind of old. They're probably going to get a new one for 2026 if I were to throw a guess out there, maybe 2027. I don't know, but that's just something to look forward to throughout the IMSA season. Are we going to see drivers losing points? Are we going to see teams losing points? Are we going to see more of this? Or is nothing going to happen? Or maybe someone might get put in timeout. But yeah.
I would like to see someone get put in timeout just for the hilarity that would ensue.
Yeah. As we talked about earlier in the news, 2 Stewart-Haas entries, assessed L1 penalties, Logano fined. I will point out that what I didn't talk about earlier, that's the 5th time since Talladega 2022 that a Stewart-Haas car has been put back in points or had a penalty, which is saying something because they're not a good team in the first place right now.
Okay.
But yeah, one of them, the Charlotte Roval race, for race manipulation when there's been other worse violations of that, should not have been a fine, but or a penalty point, but whatever. Moving on, Derek Kraus lands 6-race Cup Series schedule with Colleague Racing. The hole that AJ Allmendinger or that they're replacing with this group of guys is I think an obvious downgrade from AJ Allmendinger because no disrespect to Derek Kraus, the guy's ran, I don't know, a half dozen Xfinity races in his career and not with any huge success that would make me, oh yeah, this guy's ready for Cup. And even in trucks, he ran a couple full seasons doing basically nothing respectful, respectfully. Like, he was decent, but he's not a Cup driver. He hasn't done anything to do this, so I know why they're putting him, because it's money, and people like money. But guy hasn't done anything. I still like AJ Allmendinger full time in that car because, no disrespect to him or Josh Williams, they have not done anything to deserve a Cup ride of a caliber that has won 2 races in its 2.5-ish season existence. But yeah. And then, final piece of NASCAR news at least. Denny Hamlin said it's disappointing on Jim France declining a meeting with Cup Series teams at Daytona. It's about the charter talks. NASCAR says this, the teams say this, no team's willing to budge. So NASCAR had said, okay, if you guys are just unwilling to budge from where you're at right now, there's no point in having a conversation, which kind of makes sense. I'd like to see conversations just because get things moving. Just not have to worry about the charter deal expires at the end of this year. So NASCAR is optimistic that there will be a deal done. We'll see. Moving on to Formula E. Their CEO pokes fun at Formula One with a 2,050 bet on another Verstappen title. So if Verstappen doesn't win, he'll pay $1,000 to the charity of choice from the winning F1 driver. So
It
I
seems
think
like he's
that's
just
a
trying
safe-
to get popularity or attention, I
Yeah.
guess.
it's a safe bet. And the thing that makes F1 harder to watch compared to other motorsports is it's way too predictable.
I don't know a single motorsports fan that would rather watch Formula E over F1.
I'm not, that's not the point I'm making. Is that the thing is that in general, F1's just too easy to predict, and that's a point he's making. Formula E is, to their credit, they do have more winners, but if you want to watch that style of racing, just go to IndyCar. It's just a better version of Formula E as a whole. More teams, more drivers, better point system, better
circuits.
tracks, better sounding cars, better cars. But yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's sure you can predict that Verstappen's gonna win another championship. So sure, the top of the grid is predictable, but I would say that everything after that, who really knows?
Yeah, but
Who really knows?
But the counterpoint to that is that for other series, it's the whole entire grid.
Sure.
I mean, that's also looking at this past year. I mean, you look at the year before that, Verstappen still won, but there was challenges. You look before that, it came down to the final race in Abu Dhabi. So it's just Red Bull's current dominance. It's just Verstappen's current dominance. But you look, as he said, you look after that, you look at that battle for second, it's a toss-up this year. And we haven't even seen the cars out on track racing yet. Of course, there was testing.
Yeah, don't read too much into testing.
Yeah, I know, but it's... Yeah. I mean, Verstappen still dominating testing. Red Bull still dominating testing. But we're yet to see the...
Yeah, how everything files out after that.
Which will be interesting, don't get me wrong, but it's just... I prefer not knowing who the champion. And then
I get it. I mean, I think F1 fans, for the most part, unless they're Verstappen fans, prefer to not know who the champion's going to be either. But that's just how it is right now with the dominance. And so, yeah, the Formula E CEO has a point, but it just seems like a way for him to get attention to his own series by him saying this, and it's kind of a weak attempt in my opinion.
Well, we are talking about it, and one more thing, it's not always been this way. There's other teams that just dominate. You look at Mercedes. Not too long ago, you look at Ferrari with Schumi. So, at the end of the day, it is about building cars more than actual close racing.
Mm-hmm.
But that's what makes Formula One, and I respect. Moving on back to stateside. IndyCar bans Newgarden's Indy 500 Turn 4 move, which is snaking down below what the quote-unquote normal track is, where the apron begins for pit road, below that line, because of the attenuator wall, which drivers have crashed in. Most recently, Oliver Askew, which gave him a concussion in the Indy 500, I want to say in 2021. Memory serves me right. Might have been 2020, actually. Yeah, that's a smart move. Gets the racing safer, and we don't have to see that again. IndyCar revises their restart procedure for the new season. They're gonna have like a go line similar to NASCAR, but not the same thing. So yeah.
Well, what's the difference?
Let me read, because I kind of forgot that I put that in there.
All right.
As my because I have a great memory.
Okay.
I found the article.
Did you find it?
Yeah.
Okay.
It will. They will paint a restart line on the exit of the last turn that holds field in check, and the IndyCar line is to keep no passing is allowed until the driver crosses that line.
Okay.
So that happened a couple times at Laguna Seca, and they're going to marshal it with the new light panels. So yeah. And then finally, Colin Braun, Jack Harvey drafted into test with Dale Coyne Racing at Sebring. Sounds like it's going to be Harvey for the full year, and the 18 and 51 will have a cast of characters, including Colin Braun to start off. Interesting to see.
Alright.
Because we haven't had a rotating cast of characters in a ride in a while that hasn't been injury related. So, yeah, that'll be interesting to see how that works for the team. But, yeah. Ethan, you want to tackle the next one? Because you know more about this one than I do. For once.
I'm just going to go over all of F1 really quick. We're not really going to talk about testing because everyone who wanted to talk about testing has already talked about testing. Testing happened a little bit ago. We're not going to go over it. But there are some other pieces of news that are worth mentioning as they are more recent. The reason that Gunther Steiner and Haas split has basically come out. Gunther essentially secured a big sponsorship for Haas, and him and Gene were talking, and Gunther wanted a stake in the team, and Gene Haas said no. So that left to Steiner's departure, and Steiner is going to not have a job in the paddock. He's moving over towards the television side. He's going to be contributing to German Formula One broadcasts, and as we know, Ao Komatsu has taken over Gunther's job as the Haas team principal. Beyond that, that is really all the F1 news that we have going into the race weekend, surprisingly. Christian Horner's investigation is the investigation into Christian Horner, I should say, is apparently going to be revealed before the weekend officially starts.
We'll see about that.
Yeah, if it will or not, I mean, we don't really know, but it's supposed to, so that's that. But yeah, speaking of race weekends, though, let's just hop into the previews, shall we?
One more thing before we head into the previews is that Gunther during NASCAR race, the 2023 COTA race, I believe. Yeah, it was. He was in the commentary booth with Mike Joy and Clint Boyer, who were the regulars. They had Kurt Busch in there as well. And they had Chase Elliott over Zoom, which was weird. And Gunther was good. I would have liked to heard more of him because a 5-man booth is kind of
unusual,
crowded.
Yeah, that too.
And unusual as well. But he was very good, especially from a guy who had worked in NASCAR before with Red Bull Racing, who had been he knew what he was talking about. And for Formula One, where it will be closer to his natural motorsport, where he knows more, knows a lot, and was recently out of the paddock compared to the NASCAR garage being out there last 10 years ago before he stepped into the booth for that race. He'll be good, I think. But yeah. Shall we head into the previews?
Yeah, let's do it. And now for next week's race previews.
First of all, Qatar 1812 kilometers. That is, it's going to be a 10-hour race. They call it that because that's of Qatar's Independence Day, 1812, I believe. I thought I read that once. And the year 1812, I think.
Okay.
I think, but who knows?
I was trying to think, like, if it's the 18th
Or-
of December, why aren't they doing it on the 18th of...
The year 1812.
Right, that makes more sense.
But it might have been 18th of December one day. I don't know. But anyway, they have that first race of the World Endurance Championship. You have the new LMGT 3 class. So yeah, new GT manufacturers. You go from the 4 manufacturer LMGTE to like 8, 9 in GTE. So that's good.
Mm-hmm.
You have the debuts of the Lamborghini hypercar, the Alpine hypercar, and the Isotta Franciazione hypercar. I don't speak Italian. Sorry, I butchered that. So yeah, that's something to look for. And totally, this is a great idea to have this race on this weekend, considering that there's definitely not another series that's owned by the FIA or ran by the FIA in another Middle Eastern country kicking off their season. Isn't that right, Ethan?
I don't think it's that big of a deal.
It just seems weird to me that F1 and WEC are kicking off their seasons in a similar area on the similar weekend.
I
Or in the same
suppose so,
weekend. It's just-
but I don't know. I mean, people that prefer endurance racing are going to watch that. People that prefer F1 are going to watch that. I mean, F1 is only... endurance racing is going to take a much longer time because that's just the nature of that sport.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. I don't think it's too big of a deal. And, I mean, same region of the world, but different countries. It's all right, I think.
Want to preview Bahrain for us?
Yeah, so Bahrain, of course, first race of this season. Testing was there, so the teams are going to have a better understanding of the track. So in terms of just qualifying and that sort of stuff, Bahrain might be a little more boring than the races that we'll see play out later in the season because the teams just understand Bahrain more with these cars, just byproduct of having testing there. But it is going to give us the first chance to see these cars in the competitive setting. There's all these rumors about these cars. Like, is the Alpine really as bad as some people say it is? Is the RB as good as some people say it is? This, that, the other thing. Who knows? We're going to be able to find out in a few days' time. So it's going to be exciting to see. I mean, can't really preview it that much when we don't really have anything to base it off of. But yeah, that's what I got to say about that.
Yeah.
Royce, you got anything to say about Bahrain?
I mean, it'll just be interesting to see how the cars get out on the track. I mean, obviously there's a lot of interest about the renamed AlphaTauri team Visa Cash App Racing Bulls. A little bit of excitement surrounding them, and it'll be interesting to see if Daniel Ricciardo can return to form. But
I think he will.
It'll be an interesting weekend.
We're going to talk about that a little later.
Yeah, we will.
F1 will race in Las Vegas later this year, but NASCAR is racing on the Las Vegas Motor Speedway.
Not
this
the street
weekend.
circuit.
That's why I said Motor Speed.
I'm just clarifying.
Speedway. First true mile and a half of this year. Expect this race to be a little bit more boring compared to the first races. Going to get cars strung out. No pack racing. Likely no big wrecks, but stuff can happen. At the end of the day, it's Las Vegas. It's a track. It's not my favorite. It's not my least favorite. Doesn't deserve 2 dates, but yeah. And now I think we shall get into the picks.
Well, before we do
bread and butter here.
Before we do that, do you want to go over our predictions for the F1 season? I think we should do that first.
If you say so.
I say so.
Do you want to go first with that, Ethan, since you're so eager to do this?
Sure.
Sure.
Let's see. 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 Let's see We're going to do this a little bit differently than we did the predictions for NASCAR. For NASCAR, we kind of just predicted the playoffs and how we thought that would dwindle down before ending up at a champion. Obviously, Formula One is a little bit of a lot different in terms of how points are scored. There's no playoffs. It's just whoever has the most points at the end of the season. So,
Traditional
yeah.
format.
So, I think that we should go naming our, I'll say my number 20. Royce, you said your number 20. Andrew, you said your number 20. We give a quick reasoning and we move up to number 1. And then we go just hit the teams, the constructors order real quick.
All right. So, Ethan, you want to go ahead with that?
Sure. So, in last place, number 20, the spot on the grid that absolutely nobody wants, I have Nico Hülkenberg. The reason I have Nico Hülkenberg finishing last is I just think he's a very consistent driver, which is fine, but it also means that he's not going to have the highs of some other drivers down low on the grid. So, Hülkenberg 20th for me.
Yeah, for me, I'm going Haas in that 20 position too, but instead I've got the teammate Kevin Magnussen. I just think Hülkenberg, as you said, he's consistent. I think his consistency will probably allow for better performance throughout the year than K-Mag, but Haas is definitely going to struggle this year.
Yeah, I'm also riding the Haas train. This guy could possibly go without scoring a point this year. Kevin Magnussen, for what you like you said, Royce, inconsistency. Who knows? Not me.
In P19, I do have Kevin Magnussen. I will say, I do think Hülkenberg is going to have a better season, but just from a points perspective, I could see a race where there's all this craziness, multiple retirements, and Magnussen ends up being the guy to come out on top because he can have some crazy performances. He just doesn't have that consistency. But on the flip side, like you said, Andrew, he very well could score no points this year.
And for me in that 19 position is Zhou Guanyu. I mean, I think Kick will be down there with Haas, kind of just battling to not be last. And I just think Zhou Guanyu, since coming into F1, just hasn't really been able to find his step. And I think Bottas will be able to outperform him. So I have Guanyu in the 19th position.
I have a different driver. I'm going to go with our American friend, Logan Sargent. Don't think think he'll do well this year. At the end of the day, he's just not the greatest driver, and Williams, there's rumors that they might not be good this year.
Yeah.
And he finished 21st last year. So, hopefully he takes a step in the right direction.
Yeah, I have Logie Sarge finishing 18th. I think he will improve on last year, but I don't think that it's going to be some crazy improvement. I think the Williams will be a little bit of a better car, but still I don't think it's going to be enough for Logan to get much higher than 18th.
For me, I think I'm sticking with Haas down low. It'll be Hülkenberg 18th. I think he'll be able to find a little more out of that car than Magnussen will be. Maybe pick up 1 or 2 points throughout the year, just in a couple of races, but I don't see much coming out of him either.
I'm going to go with what you said a little bit earlier, Royce, and Zhou Guanyu. And this is a put up or get kicked out of F1 year for him. Hasn't done much.
Spoiler alert, go watch our seat prediction podcast.
Seat could be very well on the line. Both Ethan, I think he won't perform and not be driving next year.
Yeah.
And I think that's definitely an interesting point because you also have Theo Porcher who won F2 in 2023. He's out of a seat this year. He's just a reserve driver. And so it's do or die for Zhou. So I think if he doesn't perform, Porcher is coming for that seat next year.
I agree with that.
He's in Super Formula, right?
Porcher?
He might be. I honestly don't remember off the top of my head.
All right, let me Google that.
Yeah. Well, you're looking that up. Sticking with Kick Sauber, whatever they're called. I have one of their drivers in 17th, Zhou Guanyu. Basically, like what's been said, Zhou is going to be under pressure. He's had some decent moments, but he just hasn't shown enough in Formula One, and he's going to be at risk from Teo Porcher taking his seat or another driver. So yeah, I don't think he performs. I don't think that car is good, and he's not really going to have an opportunity to perform super well because of the car, but I don't think he's quite cut out for F1 personally. So Zhou Guanyu in 17th.
Yeah, Pocher he is in Super Formula and the only non-Japanese driver in there this season.
Really? Okay.
So far. There's one seat yet to be announced. So, we'll see.
Continuing with number 17, I think 17th will be Bottas for Kick Sauber. I think it's kind of winding down his career. He can still get something out of the cars, and so I think that will give him a couple points this year. But he's kind of, I think as he gets towards the end of his career, he's taking his classic Finnish attitude, similar to Raikkonen, with a lack of care, just there to have a good time.
Yeah, just here for the vibes. I'm going with the same thing as well.
It's just a hobby for me.
For whatever, for the light green team, as what I might be calling them now. Who knows?
Yeah. So for me in 16th, I have Bottas. Yeah, like you said, he's in his Raikkonen era right now. I think he's still enjoying it, but I don't think he has that same kind of fire as in the earlier years. And I mean, we talked about this on our season or 2025 driver grid prediction. I don't think that Bottas will stay in F1. I think this season is going to be his last. I think he will finish in front of Zhou, but that doesn't mean I think he's going to have some ground or just like world-shaking season. I think he's not going to do that great.
For me in 16th, I have Logan Sargent. I think Williams' car will be above Kick and Haas. I think Sauber and Haas will really be back of the pack. So I think Williams just being better than that will allow Sargent to get a few, just get above those drivers. So I have him 16th, but I have him as the worst of the rest.
I have Nico Hülkenberg in 16th. He's a good driver, but we had the same bottom five, just in different orders. The two Haas drivers, two Sauber drivers, and Logan Sargent. So interesting there how that all stacked up. We'll see how
it plays out.
Yeah, how the rest plays out.
Yeah. So, like you said, we kind of had all those same drivers in differentiating orders, and I wouldn't be surprised if we all had the same driver either next or in a few spots. 15th, I have Alex Albon. I think that he will be a good bit above those bottom five in terms of points, but I don't think his points total will be enough to get him into the conversation of 14th, 13th, and that direction. I think he's kind of going to be in no man's land by himself in 15th this year. I think that the Williams team, they came into testing really excited, and they came out of testing with a bit of a different rhetoric. They were talking about how, it just kind of seemed like although they took a step forward, they also realized that everyone else also took that step forward pretty much. Mm-hmm. So Albon, I think he is a better driver at this stage in his career than the drivers I listed beneath him. And I do think that the Williams will give him the opportunity to be in that 15th spot, kind of in that no man's land, like I said.
For me, 15th, I have Esteban Ocon. I think Alpine's going to struggle this year, and between him and Gasly, it'll be a fight, but I think he'll come out below Gasly.
I'm going to go a different route. I'm going to go with the one Yuki Tsunoda.
Wow, okay.
I don't see the Vicarb coming out strong. It's gonna be fighting with the Williams. We'll see who gets the better of those two, but that's where I think they're gonna be. They're gonna be a step. He'll be a step above the bottom 5, but kind of in a league of a couple other drivers that are just kind of just lurking in the. Got like 12 points this year, like 12 to 22 points. I don't know, something like that.
Sure. 14th, I have Ocon. I think that the Alpine is going to struggle, especially early on in the year. I wouldn't be surprised if they were kind of in that same tier as the, Sauber, Williams, those cars to start out the season on pace. But I do trust Alpine to improve more as the season goes on than I do those other teams. I think that they'll be decently competitive by the end of the season, fighting for those bottom points positions, but just the early on in the season struggle, I think, is really going to weigh the team down, and then by a product of that, their driver, Esteban Ocon.
For 14, I have Yuki. I think he definitely improved towards the latter end of last year, but I think I don't think he's just going to be as strong this year. I don't think that performance is going to replicate to the early season, so I think he'll be stuck 14th.
You said I was going to have, or that we would have this driver a few spots shortly, Ethan, and I do. I have this guy coming in number 14 position, Alexander Albon. Like you said, he's just going to be kind of in that group. I think he's just kind of being in that group of 4. I've got 4 drivers in particular, just around 15, 20 points, give or take, this year. He's going to be higher than his teammate, that's for sure, because of who they are. But yeah.
Okay.
Not much to say there.
That's fair. I think you might be a little bullish on that, but I respect that take. In 13th, I have Pierre Gasly. I think that Pierre and Esteban are probably the most comparable or closest driver pairing on the grid. I think that they are so evenly matched. I don't think that there's going to be much separating them, but I do think that Pierre gets that advantage just because
He's better
a little bit, but I think, like I said, I think they're so comparable on driving ability. I don't think that Pierre is that much better than Esteban, but Pierre did come into the team last year, whereas Esteban has been there longer, and Pierre kind of asserted himself, finishing above Esteban, even if it was like, I think 4 points, if I remember correctly, that separated them. So I kind of think that it will be something similar to that again this year. 5, 6, 7, however many points. I don't think it's going to be much separating those two.
I Ethan, before you go, Royce, I thought you were going to say they were the most French team, or French driver pairing.
Oh, well, yeah, I mean, that goes without saying.
Yeah, I thought you were going to have a Will Buxton moment. But, Royce, go ahead. Who you got at unlucky 13?
13, I also have Pierre Gasly. As you said, Ethan, I think him and Ocon are really close as a pairing just in terms of performance. But I think Gasly will find a little bit more out of that car and with another year in Alpine. But you got to feel for them both, because both, especially Gasly with the move there from AlphaTauri, you're looking at this move as a place to propel you into a Ferrari, Red Bull, or Mercedes seat, especially this year when we're seeing a shakeup. But he's driving in a poor Alpine car this year, and it might not give him that elevation to move up.
Yeah,
or even a McLaren or an Aston.
Well, I think Aston, maybe you could see a move, but McLaren, I think with Piastri and Norris, unless Norris makes a jump, it's that pairing seems pretty locked in.
I think that's pretty locked in.
Yeah. Coming in for 13 for me, I'm going to mention a guy who I think every human on Earth likes. However, I think he's very overrated. And I think he will be better than his teammate, but he'll be in this group of not many points. That's for Daniel Ricciardo. As much as I like the guy, I think the V carb team needs a shakeup.
Okay.
And I just don't. I think last season they shook in the wrong direction.
They were so. I mean, not so
Well,
good. But they were a very respectable team by the end of the year.
Yeah, but I just don't. I think Ricardo, that car just isn't going to be where the other cars are. But I do think he'll beat his teammate in Tsunoda because Ricardo is good. Don't get me wrong. I just don't think he's going to bring them out of the shadows to a top 10 performance.
So is that more of a Ricardo thing or more of a V-carb thing for you?
I think it's the drivers. Both drivers are holding the car back. That's been my take for a while.
Okay.
Even when they had De Vries in there, that was my take. The drivers are holding the car back, but to be honest, I don't know. I can't get a good read on them.
Okay. In 12th, I have Sir Lancelot. Lance just... I mean, is there a nice way to say this? He always disappoints. He never... I mean, there's been some, good moments. So that is a little harsh. But I can't see Lance, especially after what he showed last year. Maybe there will be... He missed testing last year and all that, but I don't know. Just last year does not give me much confidence that he'll be able to come close to his teammate Fernando Alonso. So, I mean, you'll find out where I have Fernando eventually, but I have Lance in 12th.
Yeah, for me too, it's Lance in 12th. I think he's holding the car back in Aston Martin. I think Aston Martin definitely could have been further up last year in constructors, but with Alonso, he was performing great. You put almost any other driver on the grid you put a Alpine driver in there, you put maybe an AlphaTauri driver in there, Aston Martin's further up. I think he's holding the Aston Martin team back, and so I think it's gonna pull him forward, but he's gonna finish 12th.
Yeah, I agree with what you said. Aston Martin holding Lance Stroll or dragging Lance Stroll up, Stroll holding the team back, and that is why I also have Lance Stroll in the 12th position. And if I just think his car is better than the Williams and the Carb, so that's why I have him above the higher than the other drivers in this kind of group of what I see.
Yeah. In 11th, I have Yuki Tsunoda. I think that Yuki's going to have a pretty good year. I think he's going to improve on last year, and I think that V-carb is pretty good. I guess we have pretty differentiating opinions on that car, Andrew, or at least on how the drivers are going to be in that car. So, yeah, I have Yuki at 11th. I'll talk a little bit more about Yuki when I talk about Daniel as well, so that'll come later.
Yeah, Morgan will like your prediction. A lot better than Royce's and mine.
Yeah.
For 11th, I have Alex Albon, I think.
Wow. I kind of forgot you hadn't said Albon yet.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think he's going to maximize the performance out of that Williams car. Williams is... They're looking, I mean, not drastically better, but they're looking like they're rising a little bit. And I think Albon's always been pretty solid driver. It's just he's never had the machinery to turn out the results. But I think this year he'll definitely maximize it and get some points for Williams.
I agree with your take on Albon. I can't see that Williams being as good as you think it is, I guess. That's where I sit.
I do see... I feel like Albon was of all the drivers the hardest to get a read on because he outperforms that car, and yeah, Albon's gonna from positions in the championship he might have the highest. I do have him the highest gap between him and his championship with 4 cars 4 drivers in between him and his teammate, just because how much he wipes the floor there.
Yeah.
But yeah, my 11 is Esty Bestie, Esteban Ocon, 11th. The Alpine is not as bad as people say it is. It's not as good as it was last year. It's not as good as the Aston. It's going to be very mid. They're going to get like 40 points-ish each this year, give or take, for Gasly and Ocon, I believe. Maybe low 30s, but that's where they're going to be. Somewhere around there.
Sure. Breaking into the top 10, I have Daniel Ricciardo at 10th. I think, like I said, I was going to talk about Yuki and Daniel together. I think that Daniel is going to have a slightly better season than Yuki. Not a crazy amount. I think that Yuki is really going to improve, and I think that Daniel is going to have a nice season back in that car for full season now. I don't think that V-Carb is necessarily going to just give Daniel everything, I guess is the best way to say that. But I do think that he will get favor in the team over Yuki, despite Yuki being there so much longer, just because Red Bull seemingly wants Daniel so much in that second Red Bull seat alongside Max Verstappen in 2025. So I really think that Daniel is going to have the better strategies, etc. And I do think that Daniel will have a better season driving, but I think that will be the real differentiator that will give Daniel 10th and keep Yuki in 11th.
Yeah, for me in 10th, I have Daniel 2. I think something important to note too is last year surrounding that AlphaTauri seat, now Racing Bull seat, was there's a lot of inconsistency there. Yeah. He came back in July, raced 2 races, was out for a while, and then came back for the final 5 races. And so he never really had the time to get those wheels under him to get moving.
Yeah.
And so I think this year, given it's a better machine and that he'll actually have that time to get used to the car, get adjusted to the way it feels, I think he'll turn out some performances and finish 10th.
Yeah.
And I mean, he had some nice performances when he came back. I mean, that Mexico drive was really impressive from him.
Yeah. With that being said, I have Pierre Gasly in 10th. One of the most underrated drivers on the grid, I think.
I think at one point he was, but I don't know about anymore.
But I think he deserves better. But so yeah, same thing with what you said earlier, Ethan. Him and Esteban being very close. I think it's going to be a bit bigger gap this year than 4 points. I think it's going to be more like 15.
Okay.
Maybe. I don't know. But I do think Gasly is the better driver there. I think he's going to serve himself even more because coming into new team, new surroundings, getting adjusted, I think might have been a little slower than he wanted at the beginning of the year. Last year, now he's got his footing set. He's got a little bit more of an advantage
Sure.
than last year, so I think it'll be a little bit bigger spread. And we had this group of 6 on the same group. You had Gasly, Ocon, Ricardo, Tsunoda, and Stroll and Albon.
Yeah, just in different orders.
Just in different orders.
I just wanted to mention, though, you're talking about Gasly being underrated. I think his career will turn out to be a sort of what-if career.
Yeah.
I think he never really got the seat that would allow him to fully unleash his potential. Mm-hmm. And I think he's just simply going to run out of time to do that. And so I think that's just the way his career is going to go.
Yeah.
Very well could be that when we look back at Pierre Gasly at the end of the day. Getting into the top 9 now, or just breaking more into that top 10, I have George Russell. I think that by the end of the season, George will get those strategies, those superior strategies. He'll get that favor as number 1 driver. With Lewis leaving, George is going to have more input in the direction of the car as the season progresses because Lewis is going to be leaving. But I just think that Lewis is going to build a gap over George in the earlier stages of the season that will cause... Just because I think Lewis is just a better driver, honestly, by a decent margin. So I think that George isn't going to be able to catch up to Lewis by season's end. So George Russell here at 9th.
For me, at 9th, I've got Fernando Alonso. I think last year that Aston Martin car started really strong, but they didn't really do much to improve it throughout the year, and the other cars catched up.
Mm-hmm.
And given they don't look to be that, I mean, obviously testing, take it with a grain of salt.
Yeah.
Given they don't look to be as strong as they were last year out of the gate, I think they'll just be a stagnant middle of the pack team, and Alonso will get the best out of it he can, but there won't be as much to come from it as did last year.
Yeah. I'm going to go Oscar Piastri.
Really?
Yeah. McLaren's just going to be them, Mercedes, and Fernando Alonso, who's his own team, because Stroll is a different team. They're all going to be fighting in a group, and right now I think Piastri's just car plus driver. That total is the worst of the total.
Sure. Yeah. Going into 8th, I have Fernando Alonso, so obviously pretty sizable gap there with me having Lance Stroll in 12th. Kind of what has been said, that Austin, who really knows, I don't expect it to be anything super crazy, but I think that Fernando is going to elevate the car, be able to slot himself there in 8th, a respectable season, and as I said in our 2025 drivers lineup prediction, I think that Fernando is going to go over to Mercedes. So I think that this is going to be the year, this is going to be the drive that, I mean, you always know that Fernando's amazing, but this is going to be another amazing year for Fernando that will land him that seat in 2025, in my opinion.
For me, once we get to this top 8, if you haven't noticed already, my last 8 are just McLaren, Mercedes, Ferrari, and Red Bull drivers. I think Red Bull, I mean, it's just going to be Verstappen above the rest, and that 7, I think, will be very tight. And so I think he's a great driver, but George Russell at 8, he's getting better as the years go on. I mean, last year was a little bit inconsistent.
I think last year was a step back, really.
Oh, yeah, last year was a step back, but the year before that, he had that Mr. Consistency run.
Yeah.
But, yeah, I think he's just gonna put in a consistently decent run this year in terms of that middle 7, and so I've got him 8th.
Yeah.
I thought you were gonna go Ethan. I'm gonna go off of what Ethan said earlier. All senior eyebrows, Fernando Alonso. Still got it. He's gonna take a step back this year because Aston's gonna take a step back.
That's where I was gonna go. I knew you were gonna agree with me.
Sometimes great minds think alike. And I think if Alonso gets the Mercedes seat, he's going to have to beat one of the Mercedes drivers. Mm-hmm. And in my prediction, he does not do that. So I think I still say, as much as I don't know if it's the best move, I think Mercedes is going to go Ocon.
Yeah. We've already talked about my thoughts on that, so if you want to hear more, go check that out. It was I don't remember exactly how many episodes ago, but
I think it was 2.
Yeah, it might have been 2 episodes ago. So if you want to hear more on our thoughts on that, go check that out. But in 7th, I have the other Mercedes, Lewis Hamilton. Big setback from where he finished, or where did he finish last year? I might be just making myself look like a fool. Lewis Hamilton, yeah, he finished 3rd last year. So big step back. I remember that he was top 5. I couldn't remember exactly where he slotted in. I am tired. Anyway, I don't think that Mercedes is going to be that great this year. And I already said that. But like I said when I was talking about Russell, I think that Lewis is going to do enough early on in the season to get that differentiator. So I think Lewis will finish 7th.
7th for me is Oscar Piastri. I mean, last year towards the end of the season got pretty good, but McLaren was a tractor at the beginning of last season. Once again, it's just that 7 is so competitive, so tight, and I think just his youth will be a little bit troublesome to him in terms of competing with that 7, but I think he'll definitely turn out some good results.
For 7th, I'm going to go with Sir Lewis Hamilton. I don't think he'll beat his teammate because at the end of the day, if I'm Mercedes, I'm giving all my preferential treatment to the driver who is staying with us next year, quite frankly.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think that will come in till later on in the season.
I'm starting that now if I'm Mercedes because I want to make my drivers my driver that stays look as good as possible. So that's why I would be doing that. But I think it's going to be a close battle. Yeah. At the end of the day.
Moving on, I meant to say this when I was talking about Lewis. I swapped these 2 drivers like 5-10 times when I was writing my list. I couldn't decide which order I wanted these 2 drivers in. But finishing just ahead of Lewis Hamilton, I have Oscar Piastri. I just think that the McLaren is going to be a really, really, really nice car this year. And I think that helps Piastri. What he lacks in experience and race pace to Lewis, he gains in having a superior car. Enough of a superior car, in my mind, to feel at least somewhat okay with giving Oscar Piastri 6th over Lewis Hamilton. And I mean, Oscar is an amazing driver as well, so got to give him props as well.
In 6th, I have Carlos Sainz. I think definitely this is a year to prove as he's out of a seat likely for next year. It'll probably be Leclerc in that other seat for Ferrari.
Confirmed. It is.
It is confirmed.
Yeah, Leclerc has a contract through 2029, I believe.
I thought it was 28, but something like that.
Either way, Carlos Sainz is looking for a spot next year. I mean, last year when he finished races, he only finished out of the top 10 once. And so he's a consistent driver, and I think in his machinery he'll finish ahead of Piastri and Russell.
Yeah.
I don't think the audience could pick up what I was doing there, but I'm for my 6th position, I'm going Mr. George Russell, just barely beating his teammate. Like I said earlier, Mercedes is. I think the group from Piastri to the guy I'm about to say next is going to be in a group all close together. Maybe a win or 2 in this group coming from them.
Interesting.
There's got to be a race at Verstappen DNFs next year, respectfully.
I agree as well. I mean, he's due, but
yeah, he's due. Or this year. I don't know how time works anymore.
Yeah, we're all tired. It's late. We are recording this much later than we normally record.
That's partially my fault that we're doing it late.
No worries.
I'm being honest. But yeah, Russell 6th. There you go.
Yeah. It was interesting the reason I said it was interesting to me that you said that this is going to be like another close group of drivers, because for me, in my head, I think it's going to be not a huge gap, but I think it's going to be a little bit of a gap from Oscar Piastri, who's in 6th for me, to Carlos Sainz, who I have in 5th. I think that Carlos Sainz, he's the smooth operator, but I don't think that he will match up towards Leclerc, especially because Leclerc is also going to be the driver staying there. He's going to get the preferential treatment throughout the season. Carlos will have a good season, but nothing groundbreaking. He is a number 2 in that car. And when you have the McLaren, who I think is around the same pace level. That's why I have to put Carlos at 5th.
For me in 5th, I have Checo.
Okay, wow.
I think McLaren, Mercedes, and Ferrari are going to kind of close that gap to Red Bull this year. I mean, obviously, Red Bull is going to design their car to who I think is the best driver in Formula One right now, Max Verstappen.
Yeah.
They're going to give him
a bold take.
They're going to give him the best car to win, and that doesn't, as we saw last year, it doesn't quite suit Checo. And I think once these other teams bridge that gap, we'll see him fall a little bit.
At number 5 for me, it's going to be Mr. Puberty's finally hitting Lando Norris. You have I just don't think the McLaren's going to. Well, I think he where he is and where his car will be highest.
All right, that's fair.
Of this little group.
Yeah. Speak of the devil. In 4th, I have Lando Norris. Like I said, I think that McLaren is going to be pretty good this year. I don't think that it's going to be quite enough to put Lando higher than 4th. So there he is, 4th, Lando Norris.
Continuing this speak of the devil train, I think Lando is going to have a really good season. I think he'll finally get his first win this year.
I agree.
But with the 3 I have above him, I just think he won't be able to outperform them, giving him the default 4th position.
Yeah.
I am going to go with, I just swapped this at the start of this rating. I don't think this driver is going to get the preferential treatment at the team. That's why I swapped him with his teammate, Carlos Sainz, because he's out of a drive. Obviously not going to get the preferential treatment. So yeah, he'll be 4th. The Ferraris will be close in competition, though.
Yeah. Breaking into the top 3 now, I have Sergio Perez. I don't think he finishes 2nd to Max this year. I did have one iteration of this list where I had Checo way down the list because I was going to say that he was going to get replaced mid-season by Daniel Ricciardo. That's just too much of a leap for me. I mean, he still finished 2nd last year. So I don't think he's going to finish 2nd this year, partially because of, like you said, Royce, the car is going to be more suited towards Max, which means it's going to be even harder for Checo to drive. So I think he will drop down from 2nd to 3rd, but still that Red Bull is such a crazy car. And we've seen Checo climb back in races. I think that's going to give him the 3rd over Lando. But if you've been keeping track, 2nd to another Ferrari driver. Or I guess 3rd, I should say.
Yeah, similar to my Albon difference that you guys were kind of surprised by earlier, this one might be a bit of a surprise. Lewis Hamilton finishing 3rd in his final season at Ferrari, or at Mercedes before going to Ferrari. Last year he was able to finish 3rd, and he was speaking of this car possibly being better than last season's car. And I think he'll want to give Mercedes just a farewell treat, give him a good performance. And I
don't know. I think he might be bluffing just because, like, I get, like, everyone wants to drive a Ferrari, and that's the reason why he's going to Ferrari, but I also just don't think he would leave to Ferrari if he thought that this Mercedes was better than previously.
That is a very good point, but I think though, too, that he'll be able to break his drought and get a win this year.
Okay.
That's a prediction. I'm going at number 3, Charles Leclerc just beating out his teammate.
Yeah. Number 2, I have Charles Leclerc. I think that Leclerc is going to be able to beat Perez just because Perez isn't going to be suited for that car. I think that the car being so fast will keep Perez in that area, and Leclerc will be able to get by Perez, but it's not going to be super easy for him. But yeah, Leclerc 2nd. He's such an amazing driver. Ferrari's going to be all behind him this year. As we've been saying, you can't really ever tell anything from testing, but that Ferrari looked pretty decent, looked pretty good. So Charles, and I think that he'll be able to sneak a win or two out from Max Verstappen this year, whether that be because Verstappen has an issue with the car or because Singapore exists. But I think Leclerc will have himself a really nice season. And I mean, I'm going to say who I think is going to finish first because it's Max Verstappen. We all have Max Verstappen finishing first.
You don't know that.
Okay. I think that Verstappen is still going to have a pretty big margin of victory, but because Leclerc will take away a few wins and such, it won't be as extreme as last year. That's a bit of a take there from me, but yeah.
For me, number 2, I also have Charles Leclerc. He's the next best driver in the next best car.
Yeah.
So I think that's a pretty easy number 2. And then, of course, number 1, Max Verstappen. I think this year he's not going to be as dominant. I don't think he'll be able to win a Constructors' Championship by himself. And I think he probably gets 18 or less wins this year.
Okay, that is a take. I respect that take.
18 or less. Write it down, ladies and gentlemen. Record it.
Get ready to call Royce either a genius or a not genius when the season is over.
Well, you said 18 or less. Watch him get 18 exactly. With that being said, I think second place in a league of his own will be Sergio Perez. The car's gotten better. The car's gotten faster. More distance from the competition will lead Perez further from the competition. The guy is kind of good at street circuits sometimes, so he'll steal a win or two from Verstappen on street circuits.
Azerbaijan, book it.
Okay, you heard from Ethan. I was thinking more Las Vegas.
Yeah, that could work.
But, yeah, I have Verstappen winning.
Yeah.
You can write it in... do you guys... You can engrave it on a trophy somewhere at this point.
Get a little tattoo.
Well, with that being said, someone probably can engrave it somewhere, and Verstappen is probably going to get in a crash, break a leg, miss 2 months of the season, still win the championship because that's how it works. I don't know.
What?
I don't know. I'm just waffling. But moving on, I guess, to the constructors.
Yeah, we can just run through it super quick.
Haas
10th. Yep, I have Haas 10th as well.
Haas 10th.
Woo.
9th, I have Sauber.
I have Kick Sauber.
8th, I have Williams.
8th, I have Alpine. I mean, I think they can... there is definitely a chance for improvement throughout the year, but, I mean, just going off this initial idea we've got right now, I've got Alpine 8.
Yeah.
I will go with the Willies as well for 8.
7th, I have Alpine. Like you said, I mean, I think they will be able to get ahead of that Williams, but I don't think they're going to get much higher than that. 7th for Alpine.
7th, I think, is just going to be Albon bringing Williams up, and so...
Alexander Albon Racing.
Yeah, it'll be Albon supporting that Williams 7th finish.
At number 7, I'm going to go with a different constructor, Vicarb, just because I don't have them being where Alpine will be. They're going to... I don't think it's as bad as people say it will be, and if it is, I do think Alpine has the resources over those two teams to make a bigger leap.
Yeah. I think that Racing Bulls, V-Carb, whatever their name is going to finish 6th. I think that car is pretty good, so 6th for them.
Yeah, improvement for Racing Bulls this year. I think they'll just finish top of that, bottom 5, finish 6th.
I'm going to go with all French racing. Alpine 6.
5th, Fernando Alonso Racing.
Yeah, same here. 5th, Fernando Alonso Racing.
I have Papa Stroll Racing at 5th as well.
I have Mercedes 4th.
4th, I mean, I had George Russell 8, Hamilton 3, and McLaren 7, Piastri 7, Norris 4. So it's kind of a toss-up. I went back and forth between this a few times, but in the end, I have McLaren finishing 4th.
Okay.
Yeah, this is going to be close between McLaren and Mercedes. I have Norris 5th, Piastri 9th, Ham and Russell 7th, 6th, respectively. I'm going with the Mercedes-AMG Petronas Formula 1 team at 4th.
I have McLaren 3rd.
Swap it I Mercedes 3rd.
Swap it back to the correct order. McLaren 3rd. I I think Norris is gonna have a little more distance between Russell compared to Hamilton and Piastri.
And then tackling that top 1-2 at the same time. Ferrari second, Red Bull first. I think that Verstappen's gap is going to be still decently sized over Leclerc, like I said. And I still have Perez finishing third, so that's why I think Red Bull will win another Constructors.
There were a few times when I was debating this list whether or not to get scorching hot and put Ferrari in front of Red Bull, but I'm not feeling that bold. We'll see how this season goes, and then maybe in 2025 I'll feel a little advantageous. So I have Ferrari second, Red Bull first.
Agreed with Ethan and Royce. Nothing new to say.
Yeah. I will say, though, before we hop into the predictions for this race, I am hopefully going to get an article out on BlazeRadioOnline.com where I'm going to write out my thoughts on all these. So keep a lookout for that if you're interested. And
I'll repost it on the podcast account if you tag me.
Yeah. And just really quickly, because we've taken a lot of your guys' time listening, we're just going to run through our picks for the races, which is the three NASCAR events in Las Vegas, Qatar, and F2 and F1. So let's get into it, Andrew. And now for next week's race picks.
From last week, Guest got 6 for picking Kyle Busch and trucks right and having Chase Elliott as highest finished. Ethan got 5 from predicting Austin Hill right. I got 6 for getting Austin Hill right and having Chase Elliott highest finish, as well as
higher
the guest.
Over
Brad Keselowski.
Yeah,
I'm at 17.
Keselowski. Shout out if you know, you know.
I'm at 17. Guest at 14. Ethan at 11. Huge
Ethan sucks.
I am the reigning champion, dude. Put some respect on my name.
Huge group of picks this week. A 10 by my calculations. With that said, let's go in reverse chronological order. Ethan, lead us off for the first event.
You want me to start with the Truck Series?
Yeah, that's first one.
So, for the Truck Series, I believe it is last week's winner that I have winning this week. That would be Sir Kyle Busch. He won Las Vegas last year. He's running again this year. It's kind of unfair when Kyle Busch runs in the Truck Series sometimes. Kyle Busch picking up the dub.
That said, Spire affiliated truck won the first 2 races. Gonna say the same thing. KFB.
For Truck Series, I think I'm gonna go a different route. Try and make the guests proud and go with Corey Heim.
I like how I said reverse chronological order and I skipped you, Royce. Sorry.
I have Austin Hill going and winning again for the Xfinity race. I am going to ride this Austin Hill train until it ends. Austin Hill is on fire right now. He won the first 2 races of the year. He also won in Las Vegas last year. So basically,
the ride
when
never
you
ends.
When you do the math, yeah, the ride never ends. So Austin Hill, do me right.
Oh, you're pointing to me. I'm going to go a different route. I'm going to go Sam Mayer.
A respectable opinion.
He's grown his oval talent. Won at Homestead last year at the most recent 1.5-mile track. A little different shape, an actual true oval compared to the tri-oval of Las Vegas. But I think he's going to win regardless.
Sure.
I think for Xfinity, Austin Hill gets his 3rd in a row, just dominates.
Yeah, for Cup, Ethan, go ahead.
Sorry, for Cup Series, I have Christopher Bell winning the race, kind of just going off vibes. He did do pretty good in Las Vegas last year. I don't have it in front of me, but I think he finished like 5th, and then when they went back, he finished 2nd.
Mm-hmm.
So he's pretty good there. I think he's going to do one better than his last time in Vegas and get a little lucky with a win.
I think the Pennzoil 400, presented by Jiffy Lube, will be won
What a name.
by the Pennzoil car, that being Joey Logano. And he's also won that race twice in the past. So.
Yeah, sure.
For NASCAR Cup Series, Give me Byron. I want William Byron to win Las Vegas.
Who's the president?
Byron.
Moving on to the great WEC.
Yeah, I have the number 8 Toyota picking up the win in hypercar. I'm kind of just a shot in the dark for me, but Brandon Hartley, do me right.
I have only one race was not won by Toyota last year. With that being said, I'm not going to take a Toyota. As dumb as it sounds, I'm going to take the Le Mans winning, of course, number 51 Ferrari.
Okay.
For Qatar, I am taking the 51 Ferrari. Got some faith in Antonio Giovinazzi bringing it home.
Yeah. For the LMGT3 class, I have the 46 WRT. Just seems right. I don't know. That's my analysis.
Mm-hmm.
Hire me, motorsports.com.
Royce, you pick now because I want to go last year.
For LMGT3 Qatar, I also have the 46 WRT. I've got my faith in Valentino Rossi, taking it from the motorbike into the car, continuing his dominance in another aspect of motorsports.
Yeah, I was going to go with the number 46 WRT BMW as well. I was the one that first picked it, and then they said, okay, we're going to pick that, and I'm not going to have the same race cars, or they're the same teams, all same. I'm going to go with the pink team, the number 85 Iron Dames Lamborghini, coming off a win in Bahrain last year. Gonna convert again, back-to-back Jack.
All right.
Or back-to-back Jill, I guess.
Speaking of Bahrain, talking F2 sprint race, I have Victor Martins. He did pretty good in the sprint last year at Bahrain, getting P3 there. I think another season in the category. He's going to do well. And that's why I have him winning the sprint.
For my sprint race, I have Dennis Hauger winning in Bahrain for Formula 2. He's a pretty strong sprint racer last year, and he finished pretty high in Bahrain last year in the sprint.
Yeah, I'm going with Oliver Behrman.
Okay.
Because he's good.
Yeah, Ollie Behrman is good. I believe he will win the F2 championship outright, and I believe that he will win the F2 main attraction, the main race in Bahrain, the feature race. Book it.
F2 Bahrain main race, I have Richard Verschoor coming a little bit of a surprise. He had some solid runs last year, had an alright performance in Bahrain. Maybe he'll surprise here.
I'm going to go with Victor Martins winning the main race. Originally, I had it swapped around, but I don't like being similar to Ethan, even though it basically ensures me being ahead of him. I should be smart, but I'm not. But who knows? That might pay off.
You're making
for
the
me.
crowd happy.
That may pay off for me, and I look like a genius, and I can stick it to you.
Maybe.
But Victor Martin's my pick for the main race.
I'm gonna say who we all have winning.
Before you do,
yeah,
we're gonna do this F1 a little differently.
Oh yeah.
We have 5 points for getting. We're doing the podium this year, so
yeah, 5 points.
5 points if you get the position right. 1 point if the driver finishes on the podium in the wrong position, and
0 points if anything else.
Yeah, so there's a good chance the F1 could make or break us this year, but we'll see.
We're not exactly set in stone with this scoring, so we are going to keep the podium for F1 going forward into later years of the podcast, but we might switch up how we do the podium scoring, so if you have an idea, let us know. All that being said, we all have Max Verstappen winning because it's Max Verstappen. Free 5 points to all of us. Round of applause. Let's go. In second place...
I'm not clapping my hands.
You're so cool and different, Andrew. In second place, I have Charles Leclerc.
Second place, I have Charles Leclerc too. He had a pretty good run 2 years. I mean, 2 years ago. Verstappen was bound to win that race, but he had some trouble near the end of it. So I've got Charles finishing second.
Speaking of being different, I don't. I have Sergio Perez because Red Bull has a dominant car.
Yeah. In third place, I have Sergio Perez because Red Bull has a dominant car, but he won't be as good as Charles Leclerc.
For third, the past 2 years he's kind of had troubles there, but I think in this McLaren car he'll be able to overcome that. I've got Lando Norris.
Royce, I hope you're right.
I'm going to go with a third different driver. I'm going to go with the Chile, Carlos Sainz Jr.
You're such a big Carlos Sainz guy.
I enjoy Carlos Sainz.
Yeah, I respect it. I respect it. I don't actually, but...
Royce, before we go, do you want to plug yourself? Where can the people find you on the social media and the interwebs?
What is it?
Royce
At
DC
RDC Journalism on Instagram. I think it's RDC Journalism on X and Royce DC on TikTok.
Oh yeah. Also, go follow my new Twitter, Ethan Ignatowski, ETHANIGNATOVSKY, ENI uppercase on X. Twitter, whatever you want to call it.
Follow me. I don't know my handle, but...
If you look up Andrew Hazlett, you'll find it.
Hopefully. But with that being said, thank you for listening. Longest episode of the podcast this season, maybe ever. I don't know.
I'm tired. Bye.
Goodbye.
To me, it looked like he actually lost the wheel.
The wheel for Ross Chastain is still and perfect.
Wheel on the track.
Did you leave the wheel loose?
You picked a fine time to leave me loose, wheel.